How did the landscape change with these three major institutions post World War II?
Okay, so the answer is we'll go one at a time. When it comes to HUC, HUC started having competition in 1922. Stephen Wise, Rabbi Stephen Wise of New York, and of great fame, American Jewish Congress fame, World Jewish Congress, he established his own school, the Jewish Institute of Religion, in 1922, which was supposed to be a progressive school, but without denominational label, on the premise that HUC was clearly Reform, and that HUC was anti-Zionist, and JIR was avowedly Zionist. But it didn't make much sense for these two schools to compete against each other indefinitely. And plus, old line classical Reform Judaism with an anti-Zionist bent was dying after World War II, after the Shoah, and with the establishment of the State of Israel. So that by 1947, there was a merger of HUC and JIR, so that the New York campus of JIR became HUC. And slowly over time, the New York campus became the dominant one. And it was in the news just a few weeks ago that Cincinnati is no longer going to have a rabbinical school. Now we're in the year 2022, so a lot of time has passed, a lot of water under the bridge, but it was clear that Cincinnati was becoming a Jewish backwater. The action is in the coastal cities of New York and LA, and that's where the major campuses were as the years went along. And the school became not much of a graduate school for Judaic studies. Yes, there were people who did doctorates there, but usually those were people who were in the Reform orbit already. It was mostly a professional school for the training of American Reform rabbis. If we go to JTS, after the war, it had its best years. It was a tremendous institution in the years between the 1940s and the 1970s. The faculty was outstanding. It was the latter years of Ginsburg, the glory days of Professor Saul Lieberman, where he authored the Tosefta Kipshuta, Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was always snubbed by JTS, never got the kavod, the honor that he deserved, but was a major figure in American Jewish life, professor of mysticism. Kaplan was still doing his thing, retiring in 1963. There were Bible scholars, H.L. Ginsburg, many figures of great renown who taught at the seminary in the Finkelstein era, which lasted from 1940 to 1972. And conservative Judaism was the dominant American Jewish denomination at that time. Yeshiva struggled mightily during the Depression and almost closed. Several times could have gone out of business, but it hung on by a thread. But it hung on. And in 1946, attained university status after Bernard Revel died in 1940 at a fairly young age. He was only 55 years old. There was a bit of an interregnum that lasted until 1943, when it was decided that they would hire Professor Samuel Belkin as the president, and Dr. Belkin was the president until his death in 1975. And university status was achieved with the help of government money. Many graduate programs were established in Belfer Hall, the tall building on 184th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. Medical school was established, a law school was established. The Graduate School of Judaic Studies, which is my alma mater, was strengthened and became a very serious program. So Yeshiva University as a university went through something of a metamorphosis, but it grew as an institution. It then had really bleak years financially in the early days of Rabbi Dr. Lamb, but survived and came back strong and survives to this day as the flagship modern Orthodox institution in America.